Very much, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm going to ask this question of you, Mr. Glick. It seems to me the President and Secretary Perry are doubling down on this common sense defying plan to blow up the energy markets by issuing an emergency order to subsidize uncompetitive energy facilities. And this strikes me as a real abuse of power. But what I want to get into with you specifically is what this is going to mean for consumers' bills. I mean, what is this going to mean for households across America? Because when you set aside all the lingo that we use around here, the chair and I used to talk about it when I was chairman of this committee. Half the time you can't even figure out what language is being discussed here, but I can tell you, people in homes, they understand what it means for their bills. Now, we looked at one analysis. I gather they are pretty widely respected. The PJM people, I guess they also are connected to the Market Monitor. And they determined that the average family would pay about $250 more per year and wouldn't be getting anything. Do you generally share that view?
Well, Senator, thanks for the question. The numbers I've seen suggest that there's been a wide range, but suggest that the proposal, if it's implemented, the proposal in the memo, could actually increase rates nationwide up to $65 billion. Now that may be on the high mark, but still, it's going to be pretty significant. What the memo essentially is calling for.
So again, let me stop you there because I want to hear it. So if anything, your take right now is that amount could be low, what I just asked about.
No, I'm not. I think that's an upper boundary.
Okay, so give us the range, the ballpark for the consumer. What you think is most likely?
Well, I haven't seen the actual, read all the analysis.
Based on what we know, because we've got this independent watchdog, which is widely respected. So go ahead.
Sure. So basically what the memo is requiring is, if the memo is implemented, it would require essentially that instead of lower cost energy being dispatched, they dispatch higher cost energy. So it's clearly going to raise rates. The question is how much. I've seen any estimates between $30 billion and $65 billion in terms of what the impact might be. It's something I saw yesterday, but we could provide greater example for the record. I want to, if Senator, if I can get back to your point, because basically you made the right point, which is you have to actually create a record. You have to have evidence in the record. When I was at the Department of Energy during the Western energy crisis during 1999 and 2000, we actually invoked both statutes that the memo suggests invoking. One of them is the 202C of the Federal Power Act. The other one's the Defense Production Act. And in both cases, there was clearly an emergency out west, as you will recall. Companies weren't selling power into California because the California PX and other purchasers of power weren't creditworthy. And so we created a record. We had the record there truly was an emergency. We issued several orders, primarily using the Federal Power Act to require generators to sell power into California, and once requiring a natural gas provider to sell natural gas into California because there was an emergency regarding supplying a defense facility up there. But again, there was evidence in the record. In this case, I think what we're trying to do is get to the solution before we actually build the record, suggesting that there's actually an emergency.
I think that is way too logical, and clearly that is not what's being done. But I'm just going to close with this, and I'm very anxious to work with my colleagues. Senator Manchin, my friend, is here. When I was chair, I came to West Virginia, and there were plenty of things we can work together on. What I'm troubled about, because I just had town meetings at home, nobody said, hey, Ron, we have an emergency here that requires that you go out and raise our power bills. And that is, I think, what people are going to take away from this. So we're going to continue our dialogue and work with colleagues on both sides. And I especially appreciate that last point that you made, is that this is really jumping the gun here, that there really aren't the facts on the record that would justify treating this as an emergency. And if you're going to raise people's power bills, which Americans understand, if you're in a national emergency and the country's well-being, everybody, whether they're in West Virginia or Oregon, we step up because we're for the red, white, and blue. But I sure don't see any evidence of an emergency here that justifies raising people's power bills along the lines of what you've described. And I thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator.